Welcome to the BioCharisma podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Gardner. Today we have Sofia Smallstorm. We are talking all things grounding, including the type of supplements you need, the types of electrolytes and metals that you need to help your body to ground. As you can see, spring has sprung here in the Ozarks, and we're doing all these things with electroculture outside, which is a nice fancy pants way of saying that we're adding free electrons to the root bases of our plants. And so in this discussion, Sophia and I get into the nitty gritty of grounding for our bodies. A lot of people call grounding earthing, essentially walking barefoot on natural hardscapes. And if you ever have felt the joy of walking on a beach or walking lakeside or being on a nice manicured property where your feet could, touch the nicely trimmed grass. All these things are wonderful to our bodies because essentially, as you'll hear in the podcast, we release the excess charge that we carry. And Sophia is an expert at this. I've actually hired her to teach me what she knows. In my construction business, I was taught by the IFE, which is the electrical municipality in Costa Rica, how to ground out structures. And I figured it's a good time to teach people how to ground out their bodies because there's so much similarity. And this is something that I needed to revisit in my own consciousness as a polarity therapist, as somebody that is actually acting as a grounding rod for my clients when I work on them. I definitely need to start practicing what I'm preaching here. It as as my move to back to the United States has been completed. So thank you for joining the podcast. We will have donation links and stuff like that down in the bottom. You can go see Sophia at sophiasmallstorm.com or avatarproducts.com. Also, she has her old site aboutthesky.com. Those are all wonderful places to visit her and her work. And as always, she's so precise and she gets right to it. So this is a podcast too that if you need visuals, I just am scrolling through her Avatar Products website, and you'll be able to see a bunch of her different products. I'm endorsing them because literally I've been a client of hers now for about 5 years. And she always supplies a very good product. And she also supplies a call to help you through whatever you're using of hers if need be. So thank you for joining the podcast, and I'll see you on the flip. Sofia Smallstorm, welcome to the BioCharisma podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Anytime I get to talk to you, I am a happy camper because I find your, wisdom path. You to me are a wise person because you study diligently and then you apply it. And so anytime I can have you on the podcast, I'm a happy camper.
Well, you're a very sweet soul. I really appreciate it. That's extremely kind of you to say. And I don't know how wise I am. I mean, that's what my name means, Sophia,
Yes.
Wisdom, philosophy, love of wisdom or knowledge or whatever. But I do my best. Let's just say that. I was incarnated to do my best. That's what I believe.
And you have been doing it. I've been aware of your essentially, I guess everything that you've put online, I've seen. All of it. No, literally. I mean, before I even know who you were, one of my neighbors in BFE, Costa Rica, he had met you at some conference, and you did the 9/11 truth. And he had he had the DVDs, and this was before we even had internet down in my part of Costa Rica. So all of us gringos, we would exchange DVDs to each other. And, we were getting to the bottom of the barrel, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this woman, Sofia Smallstorm?" I'm like, "No." And he was a chimney sweep in New York, and he met you at one of these conferences and bought your DVDs. And so
Wow.
that was where I was first. I was watching your 9/11 Truth, and I was just like blown away. It was
Oh
all
my
stuff that
gosh. I can't remember meeting a chimney sweep, but I imagine he was cleaned up. He didn't have his brooms and all soot over him, right?
no, no, no.
That's
Bill
Bill.
presented very well. Yes.
Bill
Yeah.
the chimney sweep. I'm going to have to rack my brains. You know, sometimes this comes to you. You think and think, you think before you go to sleep at night. And yeah, so here's some of my wisdom. If you can't, if you don't remember where you put something, or you don't remember somebody's name, or whatever it is that you don't remember, just ask yourself right before you go to sleep.
This is
And
true.
what happens? What happens? Tell me.
Your subconscious mind goes and finds it.
It finds it, and it also makes you wake up in the middle of the night.
Brings it to the conscious mind. Yes.
So I'm going to tell you a little story. I had a digital camera, I still have it, and it had, a huge sheet of instructions. When they gave you manuals, it was this huge piece of paper like a map, and it had the
Mhm.
instructions in Japanese, in English, in French, German, Spanish, whatever. And I had to do something. It was like a little programmable camera, and I didn't know how. I needed the instructions. So I went to look for the instructions, and I didn't have them.
Mhm.
Okay, I didn't have them. They were lost. I was floored. I don't lose stuff. So I went online. I had to get the online version, and I still was bugged. I wanted to know where my instructions were. There's no way I could have possibly thrown them out. I looked for several days. I looked where they should have been, and they were not there. So
Mhm.
then I asked myself before I go to sleep, and my subconscious woke me up in the middle of the night and told me to go into the closet again and look not on the shelf, but below the shelf, because it said that the instructions fell down and they are stuck below the shelf behind a pile of fabric that I was going to do something with someday. And that's
Mhm.
exactly where they were.
That's incredible. That's so awesome.
It's so
There's a
precise.
Yeah, that is precise. There's so many things that from the sports world, like I've had coaches my entire life. If you're having a bad practice, they say just walk away. Or if you can't figure something out, just stop and then go to something else. And I've done that with my prayer life, at night. If whatever had been vexing me in the evening or whatever questions I have, if I just give it away in that form to the subconscious to and there would always have I would always have the answer in the morning. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, that's a good expression to give it away. Just give it away. Give
My
it
mom
away.
my mom taught me that as a little kid. She said, whatever you really want, just fully imagine it, put it in a bubble, and then just imagine that bubble floating up in a way. And
Y-
I got to tell you, I get everything I want.
That's
like,
good. I
like
think she
literally,
re
yeah. My mother also gets everything she wants. It's a very interesting thing, and we're not coming from exorbitant means, but there is something to like just having the trust to like let that energy just go, and it for whatever reason it shows itself. It comes into physical manifestation.
Thank you. Thank you for telling everybody that. Yes, very good. Okay.
So we were talking earlier the week on the phone, and I had to have you back on the pod just because you're now supplying a bunch of products that we had talked about on the last podcast about, you were on the way to like actually, you were actually in the lab in the R&D phase making them, and now they're actually available. So we wanted to talk in this podcast mainly about your grounding equipment.
Thank you. Yes, I have no lab. I have no white coats. And what did you say? R&D? Yeah, I actually do that, but I do it in my own style. Yeah, no, okay. I had bought a year ago, I'm going to tell you this story. I had bought an organic cotton grounding pad. I had bought 5 of them. A friend of mine actually designed this, and he had this uh, textile company make it for him. And I bought 5, and I didn't even open the box. I didn't open the box. I didn't even look at it. I just said, no one's going to want this. And the
Oh
box sat,
no.
what?
I said, oh no.
Yeah, because that's how little interest there seemed to be in grounding. Every time I told people, "Oh, well, this, you can get the Earth's electrons by plugging into the ground hole of your wall outlet." What? No, I'm not going to do that. And I didn't want to do that at first either when I first heard of it years and years ago. Plugging into the wall outlet? Are you crazy? So I had 5 of these. I had already manufactured and designed, I should say it in the other way, designed and manufactured the grounding bed strip, which is on my site now. We'll get to that. I was using those myself, making them for friends. But anyway, so this was a pad and it seemed, really nice. My friend told me it was really nice, so I bought some. And I eventually opened the box when a neighbor down the street asked me. She said she had a grounding mat and it didn't seem to be working and she didn't like it. It didn't feel good. So I brought her one of these and she really liked it and bought one. And then I sent one to somebody on the East Coast who seemed interested, another friend. And so I had 3 left. And I did a show in November with a very popular host, and I mentioned products at the end. He always likes me to do that. And I mentioned I had put it on the website by then. And understand, I had three. I had three of these, right? And
Right.
to my shock, the orders started to roll in. I mean, that day, the next day, the next day, the next day, I couldn't believe it. I just sat here paralyzed because I had three and now I had orders for 50, now
Right.
60. What was I going to do? And these are
Hmm.
all custom made per my order, right? And
Right.
so I contacted the company and they worked like the devil and made me 100 of these so that I had a good
Wonderful.
stock. Yes. And they're
Hmm.
so nice. They're so nicely made. So there you are. There's the organic cotton grounding pad on the grounding page.
Hmm.
You can scroll down a bit. That is the steel one. Sorry, you're going to
Yes.
scroll up. Yes. Oh, I see. You're on the front page still. So if you go to the grounding page on the right menu, up at the top, there's grounding. Okay. So scroll down. There's the organic cotton one. And it is very, very, very soft. Now, here's what I learned. This is not publicized by a lot of the commercial companies that make silver threaded grounding products. This organic cotton pad has silver threads in it. You can actually see them, and both sides of it work. All right. You
Hmm.
must wash silver textiles in distilled water. And I won't say the company, but there's a company that has a monopoly on the market. It makes silver threaded sheets, half sheets, all kinds of stuff. They tell you to wash it in the machine once a week. This is what one of my customers told me. Once a week,
Ruin it.
wash it in the machine. So I learned from a physicist a few months ago, who's a specialist in all this stuff, that silver silver reacts with impurities in tap water. You must
Hmm.
have pure distilled water in order for silver not to start corroding and oxidizing.
Hmm.
So anything you buy that's for grounding or any shielding, hoodies, whatever, if they have silver threads in them, you want to wash in distilled water, which is a pain in the butt, okay?
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah,
I've used your soap berries in the past that you sell. Do you still sell those?
I stopped selling the berries. The supplier has had some problems, and I was selling the extract, the liquid,
Okay.
Himalayan soap berry liquid extract. And then I discontinued that because it just got harder and harder to get. But I will get some more because this is a very good substance to wash the grounding pad with because you don't have to do rinsing and it doesn't produce
Hmm.
suds. So you want some kind of surfactant that surfactant is slippery, right? So that's what
Right.
pulls the dirt and oil out of um, your laundry.
Hmm.
So I say also when you're using the grounding pad, this organic cotton pad, I would not say to use on your feet because you're going to have to wash it quite a bit because feet kind of pick up dirt and they get sweaty. If you scroll down the page to the stainless steel pad, it has feet on it. I had that made shortly afterwards. There you go.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, so that is stainless steel, and that is better for the floor. And now that we have summer and warm weather coming, people will want to have their bare feet rather than always wearing socks because they're cold like I am. So
Hmm.
that you can wash in with soap. And I would say put that in a bucket. You can put it in a machine. It's made for the floor, so it's a little bit stiff, even though it's not thick. But you can take a bucket and put some detergent, mild, that's good. I shouldn't say detergent, not mild soap in it. Take a little brush even and brush if you get dirt on it. But these things don't have to be washed a lot, really. So that is the stainless steel grounding mat. And if you scroll down to where it says the cables,
Yes.
all right. So this is where I did all my homework for months and months. Now, there's resistance or without resistance,
Hmm.
and you're really on your own. I have no control over what a person's wiring is like and um, electrical ground they have in any of their outlets. It could be a tiny bit impure. It could be totally fine. Most people's houses are just fine, but there's the possibility that you're running ground with a tiny bit of voltage. And this is really, really tiny. So I found um, a cord that has a fuse built in, and it's a
Nice.
resetting fuse. So at the bottom of the drop down, it says 15-foot cable with built-in fuse, no resistance. So here's the difference between resistance and no resistance, as I have learned. Resistance means a little bit of barrier toward the flow of electrons coming in. Now, these are free electrons, so let's have a little refresher. The
Hmm.
ground port in your house is connected to the electrical ground of your house. So it has to somehow be connected to the ground, right? You know about
Hmm.
this.
Yes. And I have a story to tell you since I got your tester, because I actually bought your outlet tester, and then after you're
Outlet
done
tester or
explaining
grounding tester?
both, I got both.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. Tell the story. Yeah.
So when I was calling you and I was like, I can't find grounds, it ended up being that as I went through, I had my electrician come out and he was checking and he's like, yeah, you have a ground line going. Well, we got into a renovation of the house. They had put the old grounding, line that
Rod.
ended
What?
rod had ended up being covered by the addition that they put to the house, and then that addition got eaten by termites. So we are ripping out all the wood that was termite ridden, and there's I see the grounding wire, and it's linked to a grounding rod. But God
Good.
knows that the house that was built in '67, that grounding rod was gone. It was completely eaten away.
So the grounding rod is copper. By current code, the grounding rod is 8 feet for
Right.
houses. Right. So
So
that
this
8 foot rod was gone?
it was gone. All you saw was the clamp. The
Oh my
stiff
God.
the stiff grounding clamp was right there. And I sent a picture to my electrician and we were laughing because I the last time we talked, I was like in Costa Rica, we had to do a very special type of grounding to actually get ground because the earth there was so paramagnetic that the actual I guess you'd call it the municipality in Costa Rica that supplies the electricity, they have you do a very specific system of changing the earth around the grounding rod that you put in the ground so that it will actually give you ground. Because if you just go ahead and put a pole in normal red clay, it won't give you ground. So
Wow.
there's
Because
this
it
whole
doesn't have enough conductive material in it, the clay.
no, bauxite clay is mainly aluminum silicate. It's aluminum silicate with an oxidized iron oxide. And so
But
it doesn't like to send it doesn't it's paramagnetic means that the direction of the electricity is going in every direction. And so
Mm.
that confuses the grounding rod. The grounding rod doesn't have a place to give these free electrons like you're talking about. So,
Well, I've learned more since, and I don't want to make this show complicated, but there are all these little like pockets of knowledge and
mhm,
information that I almost don't even know what to do with. So there's something called secondary oxidative stress. Dr. Mercola did a show with a guy on it, which is now on my
mm,
blog. It's very difficult to follow this man, and I will tell you what show this is, if you like.
yes, please.
Ah, I could barely understand it, but um, I am digressing now. Isn't this terrible? I shouldn't
No,
have
you're
done that. Okay, so here it is on my blog, Brad Marshall on reductive stress and health. And unfortunately, okay, Mercola starts talking immediately in the embedding. All right, so maybe we should take people to my blog, sofiasmallstorm.com. There we are. So scroll down, down, down to the red titles, and you will see the red titles. So there are a few lead articles, and then they're all red titles. There you go.
okay.
Do you see Brad Marshall? Go down a bunch. Brad Marshall on reductive stress and health. Not quite that much, I think. Let's
Brad
see where it
Marshall.
is. Do you
Got
see
it.
it?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay. So Brad Marshall is this guy who understands a tremendous amount about secondary oxidative stress, which is apparently the real reason, the real reason we get sick. All right.
I
So,
can, I do tell. Do you have do you have a little summary in your mind of what secondary? I know what oxidative stress is, but
okay.
what's
So
the
it's in that I put a little bit there. All right. So I will read from my blog what I wrote. This is as far as I got. And then my head started to spin. Our health depends on the right mix of fuel and air, to use carburetor terminology.
Mhm,
But too much fuel and too little air can mess things up, as can the opposite, too little fuel and too much air, right? So we're talking about a car. So where
mhm,
the body is concerned, reductive stress refers to what happens when there's too much fuel, too many mobile electrons in the cell. This means that there are too many riders for the taxis. Okay,
mhm,
to give you a picture. So calories from food, fats and carbohydrates, are turned into energy supplying electrons for the body. Now, this, Christopher, is the default our body has. Your body primarily wants electrons from the ground. It wants you to be outside barefoot, throwing spears or playing games or
mhm,
running down animals or wrestling with a tree to take the limbs to make a little hut for yourself. That's what your body wants to be doing, all barefoot, right? That's your
mhm,
first supply of electrons, free electrons from the earth. But when you don't have free electrons, because you're sitting inside in your sneakers at your computer or twiddling your phone, the body goes to calories from food, and the breakdown of fats and carbohydrates, this is known as the Krebs cycle, is what
mhm,
gives you the energy electrons for your cells, ATP. So now if these go unused, if you eat too much, you have too many mobile electrons, right? They have nowhere to go. You're not using them. So too many people on the bus will break the bus.
right.
So this causes reductive stress, it's called, or secondary oxidative stress. So this guy, Marshall, and he is very deep, and Mercola apparently understands him, but I don't to the extent that I should. So he says secondary oxidative stress, or this oxidative stress from having too many electrons from your food. Okay, this is not from the ground, it's from your food. It That is what is the root cause of degenerating health.
I completely concur. It's the it's kind of cool because we just came out of Ramadan, and that's like the Muslim fasting
Yeah.
time. And so many people in my community are very big into fasting. And I'm a huge fan of fasting. Like I did intermittent fasting for like 10 years and my body was at peak performance. So was my mind. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of fasting and letting the body, letting the autophagy occur, so the body's natural cleaning mechanisms go in and get rid of the senescent cells. I totally get what he's saying, because you'll have things just clear up. You'll just have like I'm always dealing with people's skin, because one of my professions is massaging, and you can tell the people that have really wonderful skin, they usually have some sort of mechanism in their life, whether it's sauna or fasting or something like that, where that secondary oxidative stress isn't actually happening for them, because the skin is like one of the first things to show when the oxidative stress is at its peak. So I'm totally on the same page of you right now.
Well, another thing Mercola adds to this is the idea, the concept of grounding, earthing. He says that that is where you dump a lot of your
Hmm.
mobile electrons if you have too many. So in
Hmm.
my book, my personal opinion, grounding, if you ground from the earth, whether you do it by spending a ton of time outdoors with bare feet, bare skin, gardening grounds you because your hands are scrabbling around in the soil. So whether you do it that way or you do it through your wall outlet for a good number of hours a day, like while you sleep, you are also dumping your mobile electrons. And grounding keeps you thinner because number one, it cuts your appetite. That's what it did for me. I'm speaking from experience. I did not have such a desire for carbs when
Hmm.
I began to ground through my wall outlet. For 4 years, I grounded through my wall outlet. And I also noticed a drop in a lot of kind of like body discomfort. My body started to run more smoothly. So Mercola says that um, earthing allows you to discharge a lot of that mobile electron load.
Hmm.
But I think, and we know, that it also allows you to port free electrons into your body when you need them. So it's on my earthing grounding brochure, which I have on my site. If you go to the Avatar product site, you will see that there's brochures and flyers, and grounding is one of them. And then it's also linked in the description. Be sure to read our detailed flyer on personal grounding here, the last line in that yellowish box, right? So
Hmm.
if you click on that, do you, so if you click on the word here, the last
Oh,
line of
here.
the
There we
yellowish
go.
box, um, did you click on
Yeah,
that?
I did.
Well, it's not, it worked for me. It's not working for you.
No, it did. It just pulled it up, and it's one of my I'll
Other
share it.
windows.
Yeah, yeah, I'll share it in another window.
Okay, I see. All right,
Uh,
good. So it worked. Yeah, it probably goes to another window. So there you are. So that you start reading on the right and then you go down to page 2. So there is a lot of material on grounding, a lot. Okay. And that goes out with every order. You get a color flyer like that that is folded up into 3.
hmm.
So yeah,
Wonderful.
the grounding that you get from the pad. Now remember, the pad is 23 by 14, I think. And then I designed this thing called that I call a bed strip. If you go a little bit lower,
On the page?
yeah, well, not on that page. That's the flyer, but on the
Yes.
store page.
I just have to do a new share back to your products. There we go.
So you go down to the bed strip. There you go. So that is that that thing is 6.5, 7 inches wide. That's all you need. And I tell
That's what I
people,
use.
yeah, I think you bought one in silver, right? So put that
Yes.
toward the bottom of your mattress so that your lower legs and feet are on it, your heels, lower legs rather,
Okay.
ankles. That's where I advocate the best use of it because it doesn't get all grungy. But if you're gonna, you can put it up if you don't sleep with a shirt on, you can put it up by your chest. But you know, body tends to sweat and more oils on the chest and torso area than the ankles and feet. this lower leg, that is. So that's where I
Mhm.
say, and it has these ends that you tuck under, and then you can also buy any length of cord or cable with it. You can buy the bed strip in a cotton stainless steel um, fabric, and that can be machine washed. That lasts a long time. Or you can buy it in silver. So silver is a little less durable and it'll last, but you don't want to wash it a lot and you want to wash it in distilled water. And the silver mesh you can barely feel. I have another silver fabric, which is a bamboo weave with silver, and I'm going to start making them out of that. So yeah, you've got
Oh,
cords with resistance, without resistance, with the fuse. You've got them all lengths.
so with that, let's go into the different scenarios of why somebody would need a cord with resistance or without it.
So what I was taught was if a person is very sensitive, if they're very old or they have a lot of health issues, they might want to get a cord with resistance, which slows down the transfer of electrons. If they get a cord without resistance, the transfer of electrons from the ground is faster.
Mhm.
And you notice the you notice the effects more quickly. Now, a lot of people may not notice any effect, um, but when I grounded the first time, I could tell that my body was feeling a lot more limber. I had more energy. It made me happier. I mean, I really think that if you take iodine, if you use magnesium products, if you ground, and if you take this product ion, you you change your that amount of shift created in your biochemistry makes you understand that you're functioning a lot better and you feel better and everything about you is elevated,
Mhm.
your mood is elevated. So with or without resistance is up to you. I tell people you could try both. You could try a cable with and a cable without. And if you're going to be, grounding for the entire night, then a cable with resistance is going to give you electron transfer over the course of the night. But if you want just to ground for a couple of hours, that's all the time you have. Like if you're sitting at your desk and you're using the stainless steel mat, you might want to go without resistance because you will notice those effects 1 or 2 hours worth um, much faster without the resistance. But then there's also the factor of what's the electrical like in your house. And
Yes.
people, yeah, so this is where I get a little bit leery because I don't have any control over this. And the only way that I've learned to test an outlet for impure ground is with a voltage meter. And it's
Hmm.
going to read very low, but it's if the needle starts twitching. But that's a difficult experiment to tell the average person to do. And most grounds are fine, in my experience.
Yes, unless you have your grounding rod in an old house that just gets eaten away. Um, I'm going to send you some videos on how the Costa Rican government grounds its transformers, like how when they're bringing in power to a site, you'll usually have a step down transformer. And I was amazed because we were all laughing as being like, I guess you would say novice electricians as contractors building because you would go ahead and test a house's panel for ground and it just wouldn't read ground. And then learning what the Costa Rican government did to create ground for the transformers and for these larger developments is like, oh, okay, that makes sense. What do you think is actually, so when you say, let's just back up a little bit with the science and say we're giving away free electrons, okay? So let's say we have this double oxidative stress that's going on. We have extra charge in the body, extra ions in the body. Why do you think that that's important actually for that to be shed? Whether you're walking outside on your grass or you're walking on the beach, I know you're an avid beach walker. Um, Swimming in large bodies of water, taking an Epsom salt bath to allow the excess charge. The a lot of people, when I bring up ions or electrons or charge, in your mind, what is this excess charge? Like, why is that charge needing to exit stage left, so to speak?
Well, there are different things that occur, and I'm not an electrical engineer or a biomedical electrical specialist, but I will tell you how I would break this apart based on what you said. Number one, there's body voltage that is picked up by working and living in electrical fields and electromagnetic fields. Okay,
Hmm.
if you bring a voltmeter up to the wiring in your wall, because your wall has wires that run through it, that wiring puts out an electric field. Anywhere where current is supplied, you get an electric field. Where current is actually being used, AC, DC, that kind of thing, being
Hmm.
used by a device or a machine or an appliance, you get an electromagnetic field. Now, those things attenuate or shrink in their severity with distance. So if you're many feet away from an electromagnetic field that's coming out of your whatever stove, if you have an electric stove, then your voltmeter won't even show it. But
Hmm.
as you get up to the stove or oven or refrigerator, because it's using power, you'll see an electromagnetic field. The needle will tell you. It's measured in milligauss usually. So that is one thing. When your body isn't touching the ground, all that electrical energy that it is picking up, because you're conductive too. You're made of waters, a huge percentage, right? And your bones are conductive. It has no place to go.
Hmm.
So you want to get that out of you. So if you're grounded, then if you're on a grounding mat, then all of that, let's call it excess electricity that you're picking up from the fields that cause your mood to shift, they cause your blood to thicken. These are the biometabolic effects, are the thickening of blood. Your blood becomes sludgy. So once you put your feet on the grounding mat, or you use that grounding cookie, that if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the grounding cookie. That's another thing that I learned from a friend of mine. That thing, you can plug a wire into it, that black
Hmm.
circle, which is about 3 inches or 4 inches, you can buy from me. And you put that in your waistband, or you put it under your leg, you sit on it.
Hmm.
And the wire gives you kind of a leash range. So you can make that 20 feet, and you can walk around your kitchen and cook, or get up from your desk and do something, or you can make that short, 6 feet, whatever you want. So, or anything in between. I have different lengths. So that's the grounding cookie. And you are literally letting that electrical energy from your computer that you're picking up and storing in your body go right into the earth. So those are living in electric and electromagnetic fields that we want to cleanse out of us from all of our appliances and and whatever else is in our living space. Now people have more than appliances. They have a lot of electronics. So you
Right.
want to get rid of this internal body voltage, which is basically the effect of like water building in a hose, water pressure. So
Hmm.
that is offloaded by grounding. But then you're talking about something else. You're talking about the mobile electrons that Mercola refers to in his interview with this Marshall guy. And I don't know enough about that. That has to do with metabolic product, ATP electrons. So let's just go to the cell. The cell has a nucleus with mitochondria in it, and it has cytoplasm outside. So if you picture an egg that you break open, a fried
Hmm.
egg even, that's the biggest cell that exists, that's known to us. So the yolk is the nucleus, and the cytoplasm is the egg white. Okay? So your cells are just like that. They have a nucleus and they have a cytoplasm. And the mitochondria, which are these organelles inside the nucleus, they're not even human. They're derived from ancient bacteria. And this is where the product ion comes in, because ion creates a relationship between certain metabolites that it brings to your gut with the mitochondria in your cells. That is a show unto itself.
Hmm.
So when you are breaking food down, the mitochondria in your cells there are different phrases for this. Some people call it regenerating ATP or reconstituting ATP, but the mitochondria are finding new electrons for ATP through the Krebs cycle, the processing of food, fats and carbohydrates primarily, to give you energy. So the food that you eat is the secondary source of free electrons. The Earth is the first source. If you don't have contact with the Earth, you're going to look to food for all your electrons, which means you're going to have to eat a lot of fats and carbohydrates. And since we've been wearing sneakers and indoors so much, look at the junk food that has been produced and consumed, right? That's fats
Right.
and carbohydrates. So that's the donatable versus free electrons on the pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
And we want not to have too many food electrons circulating in our body with nowhere to go. So that's as much as I have garnered from that Brad Marshall interview, that grounding gives you a place to send some of those extra free electrons. But I think it's more complicated than that. It'll cut down your appetite, it'll offload a lot of those free electrons, and it will offload body voltage.
That's wonderful. Has this changed your view of what your diet should be? Because you had said something in another podcast of yours that I listened to, that like if you're not grounding, don't even try and like make it eat an alkaline diet. What makes you alkaline is essentially giving away these free electrons that are running in your body. Has What's your dietary process been since learning about grounding?
I don't think what you said is exactly what I would have said, because it doesn't I wouldn't tell people that grounding makes you alkaline necessarily, but it might. I mean, so acid is electron acceptors and alkaline is electron donors, if I'm correct. It has to do with pH, acid and alkaline.
Yes.
Is right?
Yes.
So, if you're acidic, you want more electrons. If you're alkaline, you don't need electrons as many. That's,
Right.
I think, is that correct? I had
Low
it on my
pH.
desk.
Yeah, if I understand it, low pH, which is acidic, means you're hungry for ions, and then if you have a high pH, you can donate ions.
All right, so ions are
Hydro,
atoms.
hydrogen ions to be specific.
Okay, but ions are atoms with one extra proton or one extra electron or lacking one of those. Ions do not have the neutral charge. They have a negative charge because of their extra electrons or protons. So ions are atoms, but electrons are subparts of atoms. And I was
Hmm.
just talking about electrons. I don't know enough about this, honestly. And so when
Okay.
I'm talking to someone who has a different language and is talking about it, referring to something slightly different, I get totally lost. But what
Well,
is
you're
diet?
very.
Mhm.
I said you're very good at keeping me like on point. So I'm sorry if I threw a
No,
curveball
that's
at you.
okay. No, it's just that I don't feel qualified to answer questions where I don't really understand the terminology. I would have to look it up. If you gave me 15 minutes to look it up, I could look it up and give you an answer based on what I just read. And I try to look things up um, how do I say this? In a very broad spectrum way. I will pull up one post, read it, pull up another one, see what it says, see how it fits with what I already know, start asking questions,
Mhm.
start taking notes, and then I try to like hammer it into a shape that makes sense to me. And that's
Right.
just, again, my experience. That's all we have, right? Is our own experience. So, where diet is concerned, I cannot advise people. I really can't. I think a person should. I just did a show on a newsletter rather on a Zen Honeycutt interview with Del Bigtree. Absolutely
Hmm.
shocking. Conventionally grown foods today, your doctors and your, teachers and your relatives eat more fruits, eat more vegetables. No, those things have more toxins in them than nutrients. Is that a shock to you as it was to me?
Actually, not since moving back to the United States. I have gained 35 pounds since moving back to the United States, and my diet is exactly the same as what I was eating in Costa Rica. If not having better, let's just say animal inputs than I had in Costa Rica, but the vegetables here are toxic. Like,
Well, are you eating organic vegetables? Are you eating commercially
no,
grown?
no, 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 I eat both, but it's very evident. Like, we go to this one steakhouse and I always get a salad at that steakhouse, and it's like as I'm eating it, I intuitively know that it's not good for me. So it
Okay,
wasn't.
so as your food advisor for this short duration of an interview, for this short 5-minute pocket, okay, I'm going to ask you this. You go to a steakhouse.
Yes,
What's it called?
Cattleman's,
Oh my God. What state are you in?
Missouri.
Oh my God. And you're eating cattleman steak in a steakhouse. This is definitely, the worst beef, right? Unless they tell you it's some other kind of
No,
special.
no, they actually, it's really nice. This is cattle country. So we're in the foothills of the Ozarks. There's not really a lot of farming here. There's a lot of cattle ranches. And Cattleman's, it has three restaurants, and they source their beef locally. It's not the best beef in the world. I know that. We actually buy our own cow. We buy a cow a year. We
Oh
have
my
it
God,
butchered.
dead? Oh no, I'm a
No, no.
vegan.
Listen. My wife, she has a form of anemia. She needs beef at least every other day. Like, it has to happen. If she doesn't, because her body, her type of anemia, she can't make her own B vitamins. So the most bioavailable B vitamins that's known to man is in red meat, and it's miraculous for her.
It
We've
works, huh?
tried, it works. So her health has gotten really great, but I'm an A plus blood type. I don't need to eat meat all that much, and I really don't. Like, when we go to that restaurant, like, I have like a little, maybe like 3 or 4 ounces of beef. That's it. I usually just go there to, like, just to have social time. I'll usually have a salad, and I'll have like a spinach and artichoke dip, and
Yeah, I
like a
know
little.
those dips. They taste good.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's like I love vegetables. Like, I'm a gardener, like that's my last name. I was just planting earlier today. You can see the darkness in my fingernails. Like, I make biochar. I love gardening. I love vegetables, all that stuff. I know for a fact that the vegetables that you get out and about you can just feel it at, like, the supermarkets around here. That You don't want to put those vegetables in your body. And
Well,
my body is a testament to it, because I still have like, now our garden is growing, everything's growing. In like a couple weeks we'll start to have our own vegetables, but like during the winter time, it's slim pickings. Like, really,
yeah, I
really slim pickings.
understand. So that's
Yeah.
where you have to go into canning and grow sprouts, Sprouts will
Yeah.
give you a very good range of nutritive things, and they grow very fast. And if your house is warm enough, mine is not in the winter to grow sprouts.
Hmm.
But I live in California where they grow, 3 growing seasons, and we get organic lettuce and produce all year. It's easy to find.
Hmm.
So yes, I'm sorry that I trashed the cattleman chain. You'd have to. I'm begging forgiveness. If they're not that bad, and it helps your wife, and that's good. But I can't advise people on diet because, just as you said, maybe it's true that A plus blood type doesn't need meat or doesn't want meat, and whatever your wife is, she needs it. So a person has to
She's an
work this.
O.
Yeah, they have to work this out for themselves, and they have to do a lot of experimentation and see what makes them feel good. But grounding, being in contact with the earth, will shift your dietary preferences away from carbohydrates, particularly. Though I believe you need some carbohydrates, especially if you do aerobic exercise or aerobic activities. So, yeah, the toxicity of conventionally grown foods is massive. And maybe it's the
Yes.
amount of glyphosate that you're absorbing. I mean, if you're in, maybe those cows are grazing on glyphosate filled,
Oh,
turf.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We've had Dr. Stephanie Seneff on the podcast. I
Mm.
have her. I have both of her books. Um, I Toxic Legacy. Like my friends, because of my studies into glyphosate about 13 years ago, they started an organic co-op in Costa Rica, and like they fully funded this co-op where all the local farmers would grow their own. They actually like built them greenhouses to grow to create and created a market for it. You know, that's where all the gringos would buy their food. That was called Vida Authentica. And even back then, I think it was 2012, the CEO of that company, Authentica, she was going to speak for TEDx. And I had written her speech, and it was all trashing glyphosate. And the TEDx people wouldn't let her. They wouldn't let her say it. They wouldn't let her like talk about the detrimental effects of glyphosate. So she had to pivot the night before she went on TEDx and like totally go a different direction with it because like she was essentially censored at that point. And I
But
found it interesting when I went to live in well, I was in Europe, and I found that I would eat things that were like a no-no. If I ate in the United States, I'd get inflammatory responses and allergies and all this stuff. And then I'd eat the same food in Europe and I wouldn't have it. And I was like, huh, I wonder why. And it's because at that time that I was in Europe, they were a glyphosate free country. The country I was in was glyphosate free. And I was like, whoa, this is incredible. And so I know specifically my body is very, very sensitive to glyphosate. And I know I am exposed to it. And that's why there is this unnatural water weight that's on me.
well, let me just shed some more possibilities for your unnatural, what you call unnatural water weight. I like that. Water weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, number one, the product ion, which is the purple circle on my thing, but I did not, that's not clickable. So if you go to the health page up in the yellow top menu, health, right, and scroll down, and you will see there's the skin support spray. So there it is. That product closes your gut wall when your gut wall opens
Ah,
early. So glyphosate triggers, when you eat food that contains glyphosate, it triggers a protein in your body called zonulin to open up your gut wall. So your gut wall starts in your throat, your mouth and throat, esophageal, stomach, and then intestinal. So it is one cell thick, and it is a bunch of different cells joined together side by side, top, bottom. Each cell surrounds another cell, right? Or one cell is surrounded by other cells. And those junctions between the cells are called tight junctions, and they are regulated in terms of opening and closing by tight junction proteins in the body. And the major tight junction protein is zonulin. So
mm,
glyphosate triggers zonulin, and it makes zonulin open up the gut wall early. This is why glyphosate gives you leaky gut.
mm-hmm,
But what this product, Ion, does is it closes that gut wall. It gives an opposite command to the gut and keeps it tight so that half digested proteins and oils and glyphosate and whatnot doesn't leak out, don't leak out into your bloodstream. Because this is what happens. Your body wants all things you take in through your mouth to be processed by your digestive system, to be analyzed, taken apart, processed. And then the gut wall opens. When that's all complete, the gut wall opens and the blood takes on lipids instead of fats. Lipids are individual components of fats, right?
Hmm.
Fats is a general class. Protein is general, but you want that broken down into amino acids. Your bloodstream doesn't want to see half processed fats, partially processed food materials, half broken down proteins. It doesn't want that because when that stuff comes in, your Th2 immune system, which is an intelligence network, all immune system means is intel network of the body. So your Th2 immune system goes, what's this? I don't want these half done things. I want completely broken down lipids, completely broken down amino acids. So it goes nuts and it starts to make antibodies. And that's what gives you allergy responses, allergic responses. That's what gives you sensitivities. That's what gives you all this mucus, runny nose. You know, the minute
Hmm.
I start eating, even though I'm trying to control everything that I eat and make sure it's organic, I know there's stuff that's getting into me that's not. And my
Hmm.
nose starts running. But if I take a teaspoon of Restore, or Ion, it used to be called Restore, right as I'm eating, that doesn't happen.
That's amazing.
That's
That's
its
ama-
utility. That's one of its massive, nothing else does that. So it regulates tight junctions in the gut.
to me, that's worth its weight in gold. I don't know if I ever told you this, but when I was a little kid, I almost died from my allergies. I actually did flatline from asphyxiation. At the time in 1980, they didn't call it leaky gut, but I apparently everything while I was in the hospital, everything that they were feeding to me, I instantly became allergic to the point where my throat swelled up and I asphyxiated. And when they revived me and I came back to be in the body, I ended up having to eat apricots or some sort of apricot derivative for a whole year. And then my vitals came back. So I know I've always had a real sensitivity to my surroundings and food specifically. And when my body was the best, I was making sure I had no glyphosate, or if I did have glyphosate, it was so minimal. It was not even worth talking about. I had done the Walls protocol along with the GAPS diet, which is the gut and psychology syndrome diet by Dr. Patricia McBride, I believe. And I had gotten in with Dr. Daniels and doing the turpentine to, like, go ahead and annihilate, well, not annihilate, but help escort the parasites out of my body. And I can speak directly about all of that. Actually, what you're saying about the gut permeability relative to health, I mean, that is like a paramount thing in my consciousness. I know that to be true.
Yeah, so you don't want your gut wall to open early. And in America, as opposed to other countries, in America, glyphosate is in the air. It's
It's
in the
ubiquitous
air.
here. Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
it's
other
everywhere.
thing about this product, which deserves a show on its own, but I'll say it quickly, it's not just regulating the tight junctions of the gut. It's giving you the metabolites that are missing from the soil biome. And those are not probiotics. They are carbon, uh, they call them metabolites. I don't know what else to call them because I don't think there's really a synonym for them. Maybe allotropes of carbon, metabolites of carbon. But they have binding facets on them. They come from ancient soil. They come from the desert. The desert is soil that once upon a time had a full biomic complement because modern man didn't exist then. But the desert is dried out, desiccated ancient soil. So the carbons are still in it. And this product is a very highly researched and highly developed reactivation of desert soil. So it's, if you read the ingredients, all it says is terahydrite, but that's what they call it. It's a liquid and it looks expensive, but I'm telling you, it's 2 months supply and you only take 1 tablespoon a day. So that's that product, but that product gives you, it reactivates proper redox balance in your body, and they just came up with a skin support, which has done wondrous things for friends of mine and for me even. That's the
Oh, really?
spray bottle above. Yeah, above, right there. The skin support. You can, especially in the summer, if you're outdoors a lot, I say get a little spray bottle of that skin support. And I particularly have a lot of dryness that shows up in the summer on my forearms now that I'm of advanced age. You just spray a little bit of that on, and on your face, you mix that skin support with witch hazel, a good witch hazel, like Dickinson's witch hazel, and it really feels good. Witch hazel is supposed to be very good for your skin. And I don't know, I
I
have
always
notes on that
I always
somewhere.
wondered what it was. Because I had girlfriends that would use it, but I never used it. I just I always thought it was a funny name. Do you know what witch hazel actually is?
Let me look it up, all right? We can't go wrong if we look it up. What is witch hazel? Okay, it's not for witches. Let's see what it says. Uh, Witch hazels are a genus of flowering plants in the family Hamamelidaceae, with three species in North America, and each one, um, oh, I lost the short version. So it's Virginia, Virginiana oval, H. ovalis and H. vernalis, and one in Japan. And they're also called winter blooms. So they're deciduous shrubs or small trees. Um, the name means together with fruit, and that's all it says. So the name witch in witch hazel has its origins in Middle English wice, from the Old English wice, meaning pliant or bendable, not related to the word witch as a practitioner of magic. But they don't really tell you on Wikipedia what it's for, really. Garden shrubs, phytochemicals, and Hymalus water, polyphenols, topical ointment, a semi-solid ointment due to its astringent and antiseptic properties has long been used to treat various skin conditions like acne. I think in modern life they used it for skin issues, but it's been used for a long, long time. And I think it really, in folk medicine, it's been used for psoriasis, eczema, extracts of witch hazel, so
Mhm.
it prevents dehydration of skin. It's good for insect bites. But anyway, I bought Dickinson's witch hazel and I liked it. It's different from something like sea breeze. So
So
they
it's
use it for
it.
sore muscles, inflammation, even tumors.
Hmm, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Did
I read.
you?
Go ahead.
We have a little delay, so I apologize about that. Um, Go ahead and finish your thought, and then I want to talk to you about your square of health right here. And I need a reboot or like a refresher on actually talking about the electrolytes that are missing in our diet because I see this all as being related, like your little GIF here with grounding, the product ion that we were just talking about, and then if we could touch on iodine and magnesium just a minute, so that we have a well-rounded, plan for getting people right.
Okay, so iodine and magnesium are actually metals, but they're
Mhm.
both very volatile. And iodine is one of the halogens in the periodic table. So it is related in the periodic table to bromine, chlorine, fluorine. Those are the ones we most often encounter. And they're all very similar in terms of their molecular, um, they're both diatomic, so they're molecules, I2, F fluorine 2, bromine 2, chlorine, Cl2. So they come in pairs and they form a molecule. And iodine is the only body friendly one. And really, if you wanted to erase all of modern life and go back thousands of years, iodine is all you'd really ever encounter. Bromine, fluorine, chlorine you would encounter in very trace amounts, and iodine would completely be the master of your body because it is the most important element that you can have. It's called a mineral now, but it's not really a mineral, it's a metal. And iodine is is used by your thyroid to make its four master hormones. The thyroid is the master regulatory gland. It makes four hormones, and they are denoted as T1, T2, T3, and T4, and they travel all over your body. T4 is thyroxine, and the 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the denotations of thyroid hormone, the 1, 2, 3, 4 stand for iodine atoms. So T1 has one atom of iodine, T2 has two, T4 has four. All right, so
Hmm.
why do we want iodine now? Because deliberately there were papers written. This was part of some assignment by the perps, right? These two guys, Wolf and Chaikin, I don't know their first names, but the Wolf-Chaikin papers came out between 1948 and 1960. They demonized iodine. 5 papers. And those papers were read by allopaths and medical researchers, and people scratched their heads and went, good, good. We can't use iodine, right? So this was all done in order to remove iodine from drugstore shelves, because in the 1920s, the American government began to um, require that iodine was added to table salt because it was such an essential nutrient and it cured goiters that people had in landlocked areas. So goiter is a very inflamed, huge thyroid. And if you look it up, GOITER, under any search engine images, you will see people in the middle of Africa with these giant, it looks like cantaloupes under the skin of
Hmm.
their neck. That's how big their thyroid has gotten. And inflammatory, um, you know, inflamed prostates, inflamed lymph in the breast tissue, lumps and bumps and whatnot, and inflamed thyroid, it's all quelled by iodine, as practitioners have found over the last 100 or so years. So iodine became a go-to. Prostate cancer is the prostate inflamed because it does not have enough iodine. Breast cancer, one of the root causes of it is iodine deficiency. So if you want really nice working sexual and reproductive organ systems, you have to have iodine. So what has happened, thanks to the Wolf-Chaikin papers, is iodine got taken out of drugstores. Lugol's iodine used to be everybody had it in their house and everybody took it on a regular basis because it really helped so many chronic issues. And it's the first thing people would turn to when they had anything that they were not, any kind of basic ailment could be helped. It was said then by Lugol's iodine, and it often was. But what is the matter with us now? The matter with us now is that we have a prevalence of fluorine, chlorine, and bromine, cousins of iodine, in our modern lives. Fluorine is
Hmm.
fluorides, it's in the water, it's in food container linings, it's in flame retardants, they irradiate stored foods like in warehouses, nuts and whatever with fluoride um, materials, sprays. Then you've got bromine. They do the same thing, flame retardant. They put it in hot tubs, swimming pools, chlorine. It's used as a bleach all over the house. It's in our drinking water. So these elements, chlorine, fluorine, and bromine, the body is a blind man when it comes to biochemistry. I call it a biochemical blind man. It doesn't see, it only feels. So when it's looking for iodine and fluorine comes through the bloodstream, or chlorine or bromine, because they're so similar in the periodic table, they have the same negative charge, they have the same molecular mass. The body thinks, oh, this is iodine. And your cell receptors, your thyroid grabs that stuff, grabs fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. And instead of getting thyroid hormones made with iodine, the T1, 2, 3, and 4, you're getting them made with fluorine, chlorine, and bromine. And that's traveling all over your body to all the tissues. And you're starting to get toxic and more toxic and more toxic.
That's so basically what we're finding, whether you're talking about glyphosate, I know in Dr. Stephanie Seneff's book, she talks about how glyphosate kind of replaces glycine.
Yes.
You're talking about like the bromine and the chlorine, all the things that are within the same grouping of iodine. The modern world's chemicals are creeping in that way also. So it's just a matter if we give the body what it would naturally have, whether it's like, completely clean glycine, like the completely clean amino acids, the completely clean metals, that kind of allows the body to eject or get rid of the synthetics or their sister materials. The body will just let that go, won't it?
Well, glyphosate is tough to get rid of, but let me just give my analogy to glyphosate and glycine. So glycine is an amino acid. It is the most prevalent in the body, meaning it's used in more tissues, more cartilage, protein, bones. Glycine is it. Glycine is what your body wants. It doesn't want glyphosate, but the way they created glyphosate, which was by accident, Swiss chemist made it, um, and then a Monsanto chemist made it again in the 70s. It is the identical molecule to glycine, identical, except that the nitrogen atom has a big tail on it, phosphonomethyl tail. So that molecule, glyphosate, as opposed to glycine, identical except the nitrogen has a tail on it, all right, of
Mhm.
other stuff. Stephanie called it junk. Okay, so let me give you my little analogy. Let's say you've discovered in Italy the most beautiful, compact, sleek, fast, shiny, phenomenally designed European car, right? And you get in it and you drive and you go, "Wow, this car drives like a dream. I love it. I want it." And then you hear that made in America is the same car. Now they're making it in America, the exact same car, except it has the door jammed open. The door won't close. All right.
Mhm.
So you get in that car, the same car, exactly the same, but one door is stuck open. That door open on that car makes it not drive well. Now it's going to get wind resistance because the door is open. You can't fit it into parking spaces. It bumps and crashes into stuff. It knocks people down, the open door, right? So that's the
Right.
difference. When your body makes proteins and tissues out of glycine, it has proteins and tissues that are supple and sleek and work beautifully. When it makes them out of glyphosate, those tissues crash and burn and break and everything goes wrong.
That makes so much sense. So I love this quatrain that you have here of iodine, magnesium grounding, and then this ion support. This really seems like it's a very low cost way in which a person can support their biology the best. Like, I mean, we all need to be in nature more. I mean, if people are listening to this, you're taking on extra charge just by listening to this from some sort of device. But this is something I'm always advocating for people gardening barefoot. I'm a barefoot gardener all the time. But I know from the supplemental side of things, I need more magnesium. I used to buy, I haven't bought magnesium in God over a year or so. So the iodine, the ion, and the grounding. I love your bed strip. I use that, and I've used it for now
Thank
for
you.
6 months. I tell my audience that I don't ever endorse anything unless I've used it for 6 months. So I know that you really put a lot of research and R&D into what you're doing, and I want to be able to support it in any way that I can.
Thank you.
Um,
I'm just going to, you want the crash course on magnesium?
yes, I do.
Okay, so let me just go. I usually have, I can do it from memory, but I'm going to do it on from my flyer. So, all right. Okay, so magnesium. Remember I talked about the cell, the egg yolk thing, and okay, so magnesium is the dominant ion in the cell, and it's the second most important mineral or metal. That's what it really is, for a proper metabolism. And guess what's first? You're going to get an A on this test.
Ask again, say again.
The second most important mineral for metabolic functionality is magnesium. What is the first?
Ooh, it would have to be, I would say whatever salt is, isn't it?
No,
Um,
no. We just talked all about it.
oh, iodine.
Yes, I wanted you to get an A, so I waited. So iodine is
I
one, magnesium is second. All right. So it's an alkalinizer. It neutralizes metabolic acids. Okay. So here is what you need in your body. You need the right pH outside and the right pH inside the cell. So if there's too much, because it's an alkalinizer, if there's too much acid in the bloodstream, magnesium is given up by the cells to the bloodstream to equalize the acidity, to make it better, more alkaline, and to correct the balance. And then that blood goes off to your heart, lungs, and brains, because your body, um, brain, we don't have more than one, but your body has a hierarchy. This is my own little theory: heart, lungs, brain. It wants those to function. This is why when you go out and about, you see old people, lumbering around with walkers. Their skin is like parchment. Their bones are fragile, and they have no musculature, because those
Mhm,
systems, muscle, skin, and bone, they give up their magnesium to alkalinize the blood so the heart, lungs, and brain can work, right?
mhm.
So the body will
Yes.
sacrifice secondary systems for the primary organs. All right. So you can't measure blood levels of magnesium, cell levels of magnesium. If you measure the blood for magnesium, your doctor says it's fine. He can't see inside the cell.
Mhm.
And what's crucial is the magnesium in the cell. So you want magnesium supplementation because you want to keep putting more magnesium back into your cells, because in this acidic world, they're giving it all away to the blood to balance the pH in the blood so that the heart, lungs, and brain can function.
That yes, and I know just as an athlete, when I was actually any type of a spasm I would have, if I would put on like a magnesium cream or anything like that, that would instantaneously let the spasm go. I use it a lot with my massage clients also, depending on what's happening for them with certain muscle ailments. Um,
Yeah,
which magne
okay, so the magnesium opens up tissues. It's it promotes motility of tissues. It
Mhm,
opens up blood vessels and lymph vessels, and it relaxes muscles. It doesn't rigidify things. Calcium rigidifies, magnesium relaxes. Okay, so
right.
there's an internal magnesium, that ionic magnesium. You can make a really nice little cocktail with it. You put a couple of squirts of it in a glass of bubbly water, a drop of stevia or 2 drops, and some lemon or lime, and it's fantastic. It tastes like ginger ale, that
Nice.
little. Yeah, and you can take some in your tea, you can take some before you go to sleep. So then there's the magnesium cream, which is an absolutely amazing creation by a chemist that I know, and I private label it. I'm the only one who sells it in a jar, so you can scoop it out. It's a bit on the oily side, but my gosh, it really works well. And you can put a little bit of cream on a joint or something. I'll tell you, I was at a market once, a farmer's market, and a guy comes up to me, and he's kind of heavy set. He's in his 50s, and he's looking at my table, and I asked him if he wanted a sample of the magnesium cream. And he first said no, and then he goes, all right, I'll put some on my knee. So he puts some on his knee and he walks off. He comes back to me 10 minutes later and he says, how much of that magnesium can I get? I want to get a bunch. I said, okay, good. He said, I'm a baggage handler for Southwest Airlines. All I do is lift baggage all day, and my body is breaking apart. Everything hurts, my shoulders, my knees, everything. He goes, I put some of that cream on my knee, and my knee feels fine. So he told me he lifts 13,000 pounds of baggage a day.
Wow. That's
So that was
amazing.
one of my success stories. Yeah. And
That's wonderful.
another woman came up earlier and she asked me, early in the day, she was another vendor and she took a little sample of magnesium cream and then she came back to me at the end of the day, 4 or 5 hours later, and she goes, I haven't been able to turn my head in 8 years until I put
Mm,
that cream on. So these are crazy stories, but there's a magnesium deodorant, a TV, one of the most famous weather anchors in the world. She came to my farmer's market booth and she told me what she uses under the lights because she sweats. She said, I get so nervous, even though I've been doing this for years. The only thing that makes me not stink is magnesium chloride. So I told my chemist, can you put it in a roll on? And he did. And then there's the magnesium
awesome.
oil, which is the same thing that's in the roll on. It's not an oil. They call it an oil because it's slick, but it's water
Hmm.
soluble. It washes off. So you can put that on muscles as well. A guy told me that he put magnesium oil in his hair and he combed it,
Uh-huh.
and it's just like mousse. Your hair will stiffen up with comb lines in it, and you will get all this nice magnesium absorption because it goes through the skin. Transdermal magnesium is really good, and that's a gel. The gel is not as greasy as the cream, and it's just another thing. Men seem to like the gel, women like the cream, so I sell all of it.
That's wonderful. You have so many more products now than the last time I shopped shopped on Avatar products.
Maybe that was, yeah, I have more things. I've also gotten rid of some things. And oh, if you go to my soap, that's amazing. The Sun and Skin page. The soap maker is terrific. I'll just have to give him a little shout out. The soap maker. So go to Sun and Skin, and those soap bars are, I do grab bag soaps, so you can get 3 bars for $25. And these soaps last way longer than other soap. Lower, 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 lower. You'll see all of them there. Yeah, there are some really amazing varieties. He has over 100, and I order quite a bit. I keep a lot in my grab bag section. So, um,
This is wonderful. We've just started using tallow because we make, like I
you
said,
make soap?
we essentially have a cow, yeah. So we get a cow a year, and
Oh,
even
I have to hear
I think
about the
I
cow again.
I think I rendered. Well, I mean, that's where tallow comes from, you know. And
Yeah,
so we
beef
rendered.
tallow. That's the
Gosh,
fat,
how?
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
But you can use
the
olive
last,
oil in soap, so you can use different kinds of fat.
but the tallow is the best. I've
Well,
used everything. When I lived in the tropics, I used both palm oil, like real palm oil,
yeah.
and real coconut oil. They cannot hold a stick to tallow. I just have to say, I know you're a vegan, you said you're a vegan or a vegetarian?
Well, I'm one of those people that I never liked eating meat. I just couldn't stand it from when I was a child. So I just went with my
Mhm.
body instincts. Not
Well,
everybody should eat the way I eat.
I could send you some tallow if you want. I sent you some biochar. I can't wait for you to experiment with the biochar.
But you have to give me a
I'm
tutorial. So I don't know what to
okay.
do. I don't garden because I don't, we have ice plant around here. That's it. Our soil is not very forgiving.
Well, the biochar I sent you is semi-fine. Do you have a mortar and pestle?
Yeah.
I would put it in a mortar and pestle and make it r really fine. And then add it to like a toothpaste of yours and
And what
just
will
brush
that
your teeth
do?
with it.
What does it do?
It will it will completely clean your mouth. Like it's the cleanest mouth you've ever had in your life. Or if you wanted to,
How much do you add to toothpaste? Like equal amounts or what?
I'm so nonchalant about this. I'll put a little bit of natural toothpaste on my toothbrush and I'll just dip it into the powder of the
I see.
biochar.
I can do that. I know what you mean. You can do that with
Yeah.
baking soda, as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
that's good.
I'm That's a great one to do. And then also because you have all these really nice creams and stuff like that, add some to your magnesium cream. Like let's say you have a pat like some area of your body where the skin you feel might have taken on some sort of toxin or whatever. Rub the magnesium because I'm gonna order some of your magnesium oil and then add the biochar to that, and I'm gonna like make like a skin salve out of it because it's amazing for the skin. I don't know what the action is actually happening, but like whenever I work with biochar, my hands end up becoming so silky smooth, and it's almost like the oils within my skin are like pulled to the surface. You would think it being such a dry powder that it would actually dry my skin out like a desiccant of like, if I'm working with like any type of alkaline cement or something that like will dry my skin out. This powder is just as fine a lot of times, but it does the exact opposite. My hands get super smooth.
Well, that
So,
could be because it's it's very fine granulation, and it kind of exfoliates in a way and gets you down one more layer of epidermis, you know? So I will definitely try it in toothpaste, and I will also put it in magnesium cream. If you mix it in the oil, I'm not sure. I mean, you're going to see it, but you could still apply it. So you might that oil is not oily. It's a brine. It's a saturated
right.
solution. And
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your feedback in it too, because like, you did the our last podcast, you talked about how you essentially made your bedroom with three different,
oh yeah,
painting
shielding.
layers of the biochar paint and how that helped shield your bedroom. There's a whole other aspect, and we'll do it on another podcast where when you add that level of diamagnetism to your body, how it it really changes things. And then I also at some point I know I bombarded you the last time we talked, but I was like, I have this harebrained idea to like make a flag out of that silver material from your supplier, the silver
Hmm.
cloth material. And because I'm doing a lot of electroculture now with gardens, and so I just have this harebrained idea that some of these flags are like very very high flags, could be like adding electrostatic potential to the actual garden beds, which I know a lot of people seem to find gives them much higher yields. I know it gave us much higher yields.
Okay, so
So
my
I want,
suggestion there is I would not use silver because remember, silver is going to react with whatever's in the air, and
right. So
it reacts with tap water impurities. Our air has tons of impurities, and moisture at night, dew is probably going to wreck it. So I would use, there are other fabrics, I can send you the link. Um, you could use copper, nickel. Nickel is probably good. Anything that wouldn't be so reactive, I can find out for you. But I don't sell fabrics. You have to buy them. Or you could use stainless steel or just do a copper rod. A lot of people do that, don't they?
I do the copper rod, but I have specifically, there's something about, we were just talking about semi-permeability. In certain instances, semi-permeability is really good if you want to increase charge potential. So like in when I've built static field generators, if you have some sort of semi-permeable membrane that is moving or oscillating is a better way of saying it, like in the wind, like a flag would, that that movement builds a charge within those little within the pores of that fabric. And if you had a way of conducting that, of actually moving it from the flag itself down into wherever you want it to go, you could actually you could add a ton of charge to whatever it is.
Then your flagpole should be conductive.
It is, yeah, and
Yeah, so I
that's what
see
I
what
was
you're
trying to
saying.
tell you was like I think that there's this fascination with flag. Like as a kid, I was like, why are the elders so into flags and flagpoles and all this stuff? And then I just had this like harebrained idea is like, maybe that harkens back to a time where that was an actual technology that was used. It wasn't just to like fly your colors or your family shield or your nationality. It was actually used as a technology. And so that's just why I want to experiment with it and see like what
Mm.
type of charge potential I could get from that.
Well, that's an idea. Yeah, that's a very interesting take on whether they were blasting their national loyalty out there or not. Yeah. So, okay, well, I can send you a link to those fabrics and you can see what you think. Are you there?
Awesome. I am here. My video for some reason cut out, so we've gone extra long. I know you like to keep it to about 90 minutes.
Well,
Sophia, thank you so much.
we started really at 11:45 my time. So we're right there. We aren't extra long
Oh,
at all.
perfect. Well, it's
Yeah.
been wonderful talking with you. I will share all of your connections. Is there anything that you have coming up that you would like to share with the pod, or should we just go
Well,
ahead
I
and?
would like people to know that if you order anything related to grounding, I will give you a grounding tutorial. You get me by phone, grounding tutorial with your order.
Yes,
And you get written
yes.
instructions with everything, and you get the pamphlet. And so, yes, definitely, you're entitled to a grounding tutorial. Very few people ask for them. This is what blows me away. I mean, my first
I needed
avalanche
it.
of, well, you got one because we were talking, but my first avalanche of sales, I think like two people asked out of all those sales I got initially that freaked me out so much. And I send a reminder with every purchase. There's a little card that goes, please call me or please email for your tutorial, and then we set it up.
Hmm. Well, that's wonderful. I know I really needed it because I was completely confused by by the readings I was getting. So your help on the phone was immense.
Yeah, but those readings, you're talking about what are you talking about? Some kind of tester, the
You
radio frequency meter?
well, I bought all your meters. So what I was confused about was I didn't realize that my ground on my house was gone. So when I bought your
Right.
grounding meter to test, remember I
It
called you and
wasn't
I was like,
working.
"What's going?"
Yes. Yes, but that there is no meter associated with grounding.
Right.
You can
Yes.
buy meters from my site under the EMF remediation tab,
Hmm.
and I give you tutorials with those as well. So,
Yes. What I'm trying to say is you were helpful in everything that I bought.
oh well, I always like to be, and that's the only way to be, only way to be.
Yes.
And these things are
Well,
very confusing. Electronics, radio frequencies, I just want people to know that you cannot buy a little thingamabob that you stick on your cell phone that's going to protect you. You cannot put a sticker
no.
on your computer. You really can't. I tell people, all right, here's this. How about I sell you a little pendant? You wear it around your neck and then you won't get pregnant.
There's some crude jokes I could say right now, but I won't.
Well, maybe it works. I don't know, but I don't think so. It's the barrier
Uh,
method, barrier, distance, abstinence. So,
that yes, that's the trifle that's the trifecta that will keep you safe in that regard.
yeah. Okay. All right.
Well,
Thank you so much. I'm so happy we did this and it's let's see how it turns out and thank everybody in
excellent.
advance for bearing with us. Hope you have some interest
You,
in trying some of these things.
you will have it tomorrow by May 8th. So this will be out immediately.
All right, that's good. Thank you so much. And I took notes on biochar. I'm going to mix it with the magnesium cream and see if I get soft, silky skin.
I can't wait to hear because I know you're critical. So that this would be awesome to get feedback from you.
Thank you. I like to, if I stock something, it usually works. I don't like returns. I don't
I
like
hear you.
having to do returns. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon, Sophia. Bye-bye.
You ought to know ought to know by now.
Aho, biocharismites. Man, does Sophia bring it. She like is an avalanche, literally, of information. And the thing I like about her is that she will not ever speak about something that she doesn't know about. I drive her crazy, as you could tell, because I'm kind of scattershot. And by the way, guys, I'm going to start working on that. I know, especially with the live streams, I've the only negative commenting I've gotten on the live streams is that I'm kind of all over the place. The live stream thing, by the way, I'll try and do one of those a week, and I'll do a podcast one a week. Um, I'm liking the live stream format because I like the chat. I think that's a lot of fun. Um, Once I get to 4,000 hours viewed, I can have a super chat function on YouTube, which will be cool. But getting back to Sophia, her whole energetics is such that she's a very sensitive being. So she's had to protect herself in a modern landscape. She lives in the cityscape in California. And, as a slight woman, in her third epoch of life, there's a need. Like I have lots of clients that are in that demographic where there's just a super high sensitivity, and it's as you heard in the podcast, it's this secondary oxidative stress thing that goes on, and you can actually have this secondary oxidative stress. We didn't actually touch on this specifically, but it's not only just from food, it could also be from electronics. For her in her life, she has taken multiple steps into actually creating a very grounded, shielded sleeping environment. And what that does for her is it allows her body to recuperate. So many people I know, whether they're friends, myself, if you don't recuperate at night, you're just not you're not working, you're not hitting on all cylinders. And I like to hit on all cylinders. I got a lot going on. So if I go into my evening and go into, I guess you would say the sleep ritual, and I do all the things like make sure there's no EMF in the room, make sure it's super dark, make sure it's the right temperature, make sure like the sheets are perfect, my grounding mat's done, all of it. I sleep, I get a high quality charge in not much time. Um, but if I don't do all those things, let's say for whatever reason, there's something that's out of whack, I could get 8 hours of sleep and not feel as rested. We need to recuperate in the evening, and at least getting a bed strip. I recommend getting a bed strip and keeping your cell phone outside of your bedroom. The bed strip will help ground you while you sleep, and so your body can let go of that extra charge that it's carrying. And then at the same time, if you're not taking on any excess charge and it's in a super dark environment, your body can recuperate. In Ayurvedic medicine and even in some Chinese medicine, the whole notion of the yin energy, the pure feminine restorative energy from the kidney line in the low back, that like essentially there's a complete collapse and then restoration of the body, but it takes a while for the for the Death Star to power down. um, Give that to your body, give that to yourself, because if your body's right, your mind's right, and then you can perform higher order things. We have so much going on here. BioCharisma, we're going to be starting to build domes again, which is great. I don't think I've built a dome in 5 years. I've built a lot of other structures, but we're going to be building some star domes here. We're going to be building a few greenhouses. I'm going to build a temescal. You can see in the background back there, those two circles with that like shell-looking thing. That's a project where there's two domes that have a Vesica Pisces stem wall that connects them with this big um, radial pattern roof. All this is coming through this year, so it's exciting. We're going to be having some workshops. I'll announce that as soon as I get the more detailed information about that. And the podcast is doing great. We're on Apple now, so people seem to really be liking the Apple Pod player. That's wonderful. The live stream is a lot of fun. Join us on the Telegram chat. It's the BioCharisma podcast chat. There's a lot of folks on there with a lot to say, so it's good stuff. We've curated it pretty well. The majority of the bad actors are out of there at the moment. And if you like what I'm doing and you want to support me, you can go to topherhq.com. There's a donate page there. I am doing celestic profiles for people, which is where I read your astral body at birth, and then your astral body at conception. And then just like human design does, kind of measure the two against each other and give you, depending on what epoch in life you're in, give you kind of a accurate read on how the creator designed you. So that's a lot of fun. And doing also dome consults and everything dealing with, like, if you bought a bare piece of land and you want it to kind of form it into your master planned dream, I'm helping people with those types of I guess you would say, well, it's not just the initiatory phase. I'm helping people have their dream come from the idea realm into the physical realm. So I'm doing that also these days. So you guys can hit me up at Topher HQ. You can email me at info@topherhq.com. And I try to get to those emails as well. I don't try. I get to those emails as fast as I can. So thank you guys so much for joining us. If you like what I'm doing here, share it, man. This is good stuff. I try to bring to you excellent people. Sofia is one of the best researchers that I've come across in my entire life. So big props to her. And I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.